I'm Kate Seymour. I'm the chair of this ICOM, the International Council of Museums Conservation Committee, and we are a global organization. There are 34 international committees within ICOM, and ICOM-CC conservation is one of the largest. We have about 5,000 members from all areas of the world, and we have 21 focus groups. We call them working groups, and one of the working groups is graphic documents. And I would also encourage you to look at our website and see more information there. So it's wonderful that we have this relationship and commonality with the Musée Condé. And I will just introduce our panelists, and then we'll get on to discussing, having this conversation in conservation. So also like to thank Aon for supporting us, and to the TEFAF TRMA for their wonderful long-standing collaboration. So we have Patricia Engel, who is a fellow ICOM-CC Directory Board member, and she will be here helping me move the conversation along. And we have Caroline Barbe, who's the conservator, who has really had her fingers on, I think, almost every page of this beautiful book. So she's going to show her experiences there and explain a little bit about what they're doing and their future policy there. And the director of the museum, Mathieu, who is going to tell you a little bit about the history. But before we do that, I would like to give a little shout out to the Stichting ICOM-CC Fund. And we have here in the hall our treasurer, Marante Lammers, and our previous secretary, Thierse Mol, who you see in the pictures there. And our chair is in Nigeria. He's based in Nigeria, so he's not here today, Terry Little. This fund is a independent organization that helps ICOM-CC with our activities and projects. And we're currently organizing our 21st Triennial Conference, which will take place in September next year in Oslo, Norway. And any small donation to the fund will help our wonderful 21 coordinators get to that conference. They do an awful lot of work preparing papers and encouraging researchers, conservators, curators in the field to get there. So we're very pleased that the TEFAF organization is helping us promote this fund. So we thought we'd just take 2 minutes out of the time to do that. So doing that pitch, I would like to move on to our panelists. We've just introduced them. And a little bit starting from the big picture, if you could give us a little overview of the chateau and the museum therein. Thank you, Mathieu.
So, hi everyone. We are very honored to have been chosen by the TEFAF Museum Restoration Fund for our most valuable works of art. So the Château de Chantilly is this little house in north of Paris, 40 kilometers, not very far from here actually. And it's a very old chateau dated back from the Middle Ages, transformed during the 17th, 18th, 19th century. It was partly demolished during the French Revolution and then rebuilt by, rebuilt by a duke, the Duc d'Aumale, who was the son of the last king of the French, Henri d'Orléans. He was the most important collector in France and maybe Europe during the 19th century, one of the richest. And he rebuilt the chateau to welcome, to host his collection of books, manuscripts, rare books, drawings, paintings, works of art, sculptures, objects. And so nowadays, the Château de Chantilly, the Musée Condé, founded by this collector during the 19th century, as the second most important old masters collection in France after the Louvre, thanks to this collector. So here is one of our most important rooms, most precious room. This is the Cabinet des Livres, so the library where people in the tour come and see every day, actually, books, manuscripts, archives. And actually, it's an important way of sharing our treasure. We have 500,000 visitors per year, lots of pupils, schools, young families. And actually, this is a place, maybe the rare place where this general public can see manuscripts and books. And among that collection, which is very famous for paintings, for Raphael paintings, for instance, for drawings and so on, with a very special hanging, which has not changed since the 19th century, thanks to the testament of the Duc d'Aumale. Amongst all our treasure, you have this box and this book, which is the Très riches Heures du Duc de Berry. So actually, this book was created during the 15th century, as you know. It was ordered by Jean, Duc de Berry, the brother of Charles V. So we are in the late 14th century, beginning of the 15th century. And he was one of the biggest collectors in France and a real book lover. We are in the middle of the 100 Years' War, but you have in France these princes, such as the Duke of Burgundy, Duc de Berry, Duke of Anjou, were brilliant collectors. And at the very end of his life, around 1411, he ordered 3 young brothers, illuminators, who worked for them, were from the Netherlands, actually, from Nijmegen, the Limbourg brothers, the von Limbourg brothers. He asked them to paint and to create a new book of hours. It was his 6th book of hours. He collected books of hours. And maybe we
Celle d'après.
Here. And these brothers worked 5 years for him until 1416. And at this date, the Duc de Berry died, the 3 brothers died, and so this book was not finished. But in the inventory of the Duc de Berry, after his death, this unfinished book was called the Très riches Heures. Why très riche, very rich? Because of the material, and Coralie will talk about the material, about lapis lazuli, about silver, about gold. So it's the most precious book of the Duc de Berry. And finished in 1416, then we don't know precisely what happened because the English people came in Paris and everything was hidden or unsold and so on. But in the 1440s, the book was completed by another artist, so 30 years later, who is Barthélemy Deck, linked with Van Eyck family, so with the Ars Nova, the Netherlandish new style. And so he completed some of the calendar's miniatures. And then it was still unfinished. And this book, who was in the royal court, maybe the King Charles VII, the book came to the collection of the Duke of Savoy, Charles I, in 1485, and was completed by Jean Colomb, another great illuminator. So we called that book un livre cathédral, a cathedral book, because to create it lasts as long as creating a cathedral. And at each step, every illuminator took inspiration from it for other miniatures, or other books, other paintings. And it was, but Coralie, we talk about that, it was bound during the early 16th century in Mechelen, in the Netherlands, at the court of Margaret of Austria. So it's a very long, with the greatest artists involved.
That's a really long history and a very complicated. So it must have taken a lot of time and effort for researchers. I know the history of the book has been known, but you've been also working on the book and looking at the making process. And I think that's one of the really interesting things is how do you tell which artist nowadays without using the archives, did what? Is there signs in the book that with the making process of the vellum and the...
Yes, we had to examine the book closer, and it was the very more complete material exam that had been done for the first time. And maybe I should precise that I've been working on this book. I'm still working on it, but I've been working on this book with two book conservators, Florence Malot and Emmanuel Ancelin. I represent also today. And we first examined it very closely. And the first thing we had to imagine is how to conserve it, of course. And the first thing we look at was the binding, which is presented here. And you can see that it's not, of course, the former binding Mathieu has been talking about, because it was certainly a binding done during the 16th century by the order of Margaret of Austria. I'm talking about your control, Mathieu. Just correct if I make mistakes. And so it should have been a 16 binding for a woman, so maybe done with velvet and board from wood, and also decorated and by clasps and some metal things. And we have some evidences of the presence of a former binding on the last leaf that we are not going to present today, but they are little oxidized, just like points that should belong to the silver clasps that were attached to the foreword of the book before. So we're quite sure that this book had been bound first time. After that, we don't know anything if there has been a second binding. But the binding we are looking at is a binding from the 18th century in full leather from sheep, the animal, of course, decorated, goffered leather, red as you see, and decorated with floral border all around the boards. And on the upper board with the arms of the SRAL family, and on the lower board, the arms of the Spinola family, who was a very important family from Genoa. And Vincenzo Spinola, who should have been the owner of this book, but we don't exactly know how he became the heir of this book. But anyway, there is a part of the history missing. But after that, we know that Giambattista Serra was his nephew and became the heir and covered the coat of arms of the Spinola by another piece of leather, as you can see at the hand, on the upper cover. And so this is a typical Italian style binding from the second part of the 18th century. And the spine is with the 5 raised bands. And about the state of conservation, you can also look at the abrasions that are present on the lower board, and also maybe a part of the darkness of the spine, which attracted our gaze, and at which we were looking closely. And so I also have to add that the upper board was a bit detached, was going to be detached because of course, handling, even if it's kept in very good conditions today, but it's an ancient book of Heures. His characteristic is also that it is of a very important size, respect to our book of Heures. The Duc de Berry certainly wanted to show his power. And so I should maybe precise that the height of the book is 30 centimeters. So the miniatures are not as small as we usually see for such types of books. And so the first quire, as every book of Heures, it begins with a calendar from January to December. And the first crier is composed of 8 months, so of 4 bifolias inserted one in the other. And it was detached also as the upper bodies because of the handling, of the successive handling. So that's why there was a need of a conservation project, and that's why an exhibition was, of course, found. And about the painting layers, you can also admire here the magnificence of the entire medieval palette used by the Limbourg on the left and from Barthélemy Deck on the right. And so looking more closely to the binding, there was a singular thing that attracted our diagnostic, which is that, as you may know, the lever of the spine of the 18th century Italian binding wasn't adhering to the criers, to the spine of the criers, no, to the fold of the criers. So that's not a common structure. And we also noticed that the headbands was not traditional headbands coming from the previous binding, but they were done by industrial process. So it indicated us that it has been certainly restored after, maybe after the acquisition by the Duc d'Aumale. So we had to investigate very closely to the entire book. But maybe you have a question, Patricia?
Yes, certainly.
But
I didn't want to stop you. So I would like to go back a little bit. You mentioned the leather outside was from sheep. My immediate question is the parchment. The entire book block is made of parchment. Yeah. So did you also go a little bit into the parchment, what animal, what parts of the parchment were used? Did you find some interesting features there?
Yeah, maybe I will show you the next pictures. As the book is of an important size, the parchment, which is done, obtained by animal skin, as you may know, often by sheep or calf, or sheep or calf, yes, or
goat.
Goat, thank you. In this case, we actually don't exactly know what the animal is, but it's maybe sheep, but it has been prepared in a very thin manner. It has been braised on both sides, even if we can recognize the hair side from the flesh side, and of course the hair side has been pre-fed by the painters for the very precious miniatures. But the particularity of this manuscript, and also respect to the Belles Heures conserved in the Metropolitan, is that the spine of the animal, which is also the characteristic of this librarian material, is disposed parallel to, I mean, it's crossing the miniature in this sense. It's not,
so it's not parallel to the spine, but the other way.
It's not parallel to the spine of the book, exactly, but perpendicular to the spine of the book. And it's also because of the size of the book. They weren't able to use, because certainly the animals that have been chosen to construct such a book, they were quite young. So the skins, they can't be huge. So they were little skins. And so the only manner to manage to do such a book was to fold the skin in the sense. And so a characteristic of this manuscript is the undulations that came around the spine, and that are usually maybe less invasive in other more small book of horrors. And so I just wanted to add that we discovered also, with the help of Marie-Pierre Dion, the librarian conservators, and the help of the archives conserved in the Château, that Gustave Macon, who was the former librarian chosen by le Duc d'Aumale, had decided, together with Paul Durieux, who was a very important medieval manuscript specialist, to digitize at the beginning of the 20th century, at least to photograph it on glass plates, to make a first publication in 1904, if I don't mistake.
1904,
yeah.
Yeah, ask a question here, because often such old photos are very valuable proof of the condition of the work of art at a certain moment. Was this also some valuable information for you kept on these photos, or were they not in a good resolution, so to say?
We would have loved to have access to these photographic plates, but unfortunately they have been lost. So we have no clue and no evidence of the state of conservation of the miniatures. We don't think that every miniature had been photographed at that time, but maybe some of them, certainly some of them, but we don't have any evidence of this work. We only have an evidence of this because Gustave Macon has written different things telling, designating himself as the ordering man of dismounting this manuscript for edition purposes. And he also added that after that, he ordered the manuscript to be sewn again and to be integrated again in his 18th century cover. And there is a very funny appreciation because he said, but it's a pity maybe I have put it in back. It would have been better to have left it dismantled so that we can all admire all these miniatures. It has been done for the Heures of Étienne Chevalier, Château de Chantilly. So there is also an interesting way of approaching the conservation at the beginning of the 20th century.
I think the documentation of the book is also, we could spend hours talking about that too, but I think perhaps if you could tell more about the materiality of the drawing and how the drawings were created.
Maybe we can begin with the decision we made about the restoration, because as Coralie said, so the binding was damaged. There were some problematic with the layers of the painting, but Coralie will talk about that. Some dirt and so on. So we had to do something. Doing nothing, even though it's the Mona Lisa of the manuscript, the most important and reproduced manuscript ever, we had to do something. But the question was, should we unbound it or not?
No, I mean, that's really
and
invasive.
That's the main, that was our main issue for many months. So we had lots of committees, we made lots of analysis with the Centre de Recherche et de Restauration des Musées de France. Lots of experts came and we exchanged point of view. And actually, it was a dialogue between curators and conservators who lead to our answer to that question, which is to unbound only the calendar, because it's the most fragile and most damaged part, to display it for the exhibition. So we will talk about the exhibition afterwards. And then to rebound it in the 18th century cover after the restoration process. Why? Because the Très is not a common manuscript. It's like the Mona Lisa. So we should conserve it as a manuscript and not as...
It's a functioning book.
As a functioning and one volume.
And one volume.
Because as you know, for the Bells, the decision was another one. They made two volumes with new bindings. We wanted to keep the 18th century binding with one volume.
Yeah, and also because we attempted to evaluate the damages on the painting layers and to know if the problems the losses or the cracks we were able to identify on the painting layers were due to the parchment and to the distortion of the parchment, to the handling, or even to the painting layer itself, as it can also happen, as you know.
Yes.
So fortunately, this manuscript has wide margins, as you say, as you can see, but we measured all the margins and also the penetrations of the undulations inside the painting layer, and also the wingspan of these undulations. And we were able to, maybe we forgot to say that there are 65 large miniatures.
66 small.
Yeah. And fortunately, thanks to the wide margins, a few miniatures are affected by the undulations of the parchment. So, even if it has been rebound at the beginning of the 20th century, we thought that a third dismounting and remounting would have been another new trauma, and we wanted absolutely to avoid it. And as the first choir, containing 8 months, was available, if I can say it like that, we decided to also to dismount the second, to conserve it, to make some repairs, and to allow it to be presented. So that's the way we have been working on an empirical manner, just appreciating these wingspans and these penetrations in the miniatures. And after that, we used the microscope to study the entire calendar and to look at it very closely. We were able to say that the painting layers are quite adhering well to the support, to the parchment, because the pigments have been...
And the paint there is a gum binding media, so a plant-based media with powder pigments.
Sorry?
The painting media is a gum. Or is it
actually, the binder, we don't know what it is, because the analysis has not been performed. But we think that the binder should be proteinic. It's certainly proteinic, because the painting layer is not very hydrophilic. It doesn't absorb water as that well. So we had this first exam, and we were able to establish an entire cartography of even page of the calendar. And unfortunately, as it often happens in this at that period, and with the scholar, of course, the white is the worst pigment, the worst layer, because it's produced from the lead white. And the lead is, it's difficult to explain why the chemistry of this pigment is not very stable, but we have not been astonished to observe that the white was the less stable painting layer on these miniatures. So we documented all these cracks, as you can see here, on the meeting of the Maggie, on a cap, on one of the characters. You have on the right an important loss due to a painting layer mixed with lead white. For other pigments, it depends of the application, the concentration of pigments, respect to the binder, etc., etc. So we have been looking at it very carefully. And after that, we had to establish a consolidation protocol. And so
May I ask you a question? Because you describe now your observations with magnification, and you say that some analyses were not done. I think it is always worth to explain how much analysis is actually needed to come to an understanding of the material and the condition, and then to a conservation concept, because there is a huge variety of methods, but not all of them are always necessarily be applied. Yeah. So how is the balance? How much is really needed to come to a conclusion?
I mean, the Centre de Recherche des Musées de France did a lot of photographic cover, different ultraviolet and infrared,
X-ray.
and X-ray photographic cover. But after that, he also provided some hyperspectral analysis that gave that characterized the pigments and the colorants used by the
Coralie, I mean,
painters.
as a conservator, you're looking at this, and you must have looked at many other documents similar to this, so you know that this bit is flaking and I need to use this adhesive to go under there. So you don't need analysis to determine the binding media. Because your
it wasn't possible to perform it by the Centre de Recherche du Musée de France. So anyway, we weren't able to. But it's of course, as you say, it's useless because we performed some testing with proteinic and cellulosic different adhesives, and we choose the gelatin, bovine gelatin, which is very which likes
it flows and it flows into the cracks very nicely, and it connects them with the protein molecules that are already there. So it's very
using also ethanol, of course, before to make the painting layer adhere to the support with the. To make it.
How much would you say? How much percent needed this consolidation?
We began with very low concentrations.
No, not the concentration. How many percent of the pictures needed a consolidation?
Respect to the time dedicated to this project, we had to do some choices, of course, because...
Was it on every single miniature that needed the consolidation, or only on some of the... Because some of the calendars have much more lead white applied.
Yes, for example, of course, the month of February, which is very with a lot of snow.
Yes.
So we have to consolidate the snow. But otherwise, we weren't able, respect to the delay, to look at the entire miniatures constituting the manuscript. And so we have left some work for other conservators in the future.
It's going to be a long project.
But we were dedicated to the calendar.
The main problem.
And the main miniatures. And so, of course, the February month was the most damaged. And all the white and the mixed white painting layers were damaged, as you can see.
And I can see that you're doing the consolidation using the microscope. So you're really looking at that individual. It's not, in the past, they might have put a coating over the whole surface, but you're looking at those individual flakes. And applying the
Of course,
under.
we have decided to make only the most important flakes, the one which were moving, of course, and we were risking to lose. And so we were working very precisely with a brush, and we tried to use the nebulizer, but it wasn't useful here. And so we made a lot of testing, and then we decided to work only punctually on these losses and on these flaking surfaces by consolidating with gelatin. And so you can see also the system we designed to have the hand a little bit not
I love this box, and so you can rest your elbows. I mean, as a conservator who spends time under a microscope, this is also ergonomic. It gives you a little bit of security there
and
too.
also because the hand is moving, even if it doesn't seem to, but by magnifying you can see that it's very precise, and the brush is very thin, of course. And so we have been testing the losses with a paper point, and if it's moving, we have been consolidating by brush, and then make it dry and non-woven tissue and blotter, as if it's done in our, of course, job. And after that, we were always controlling that the adhesion was okay by using.
You can see in the left image there that you've got the book is still bound, but in the right, is this then after you've taken the calendar folios away?
The calendar is away.
You're doing the consolidation sheet by sheet, folio by folio.
Yes, the calendar was on a metal plate covered by a special tissue, and we used magnets just to maintain and just to move it under the microscope. And it was the same thing for the book because, of course, the calendar has been dismounted. And for the book, we have used the same system using a plate, a metal plate covered by a special material to maintain the folios and the entire book, not to move, and just to move the plate and to allow us to handle it with care. Yeah.
And I'm sure you've got some other images. We've got about 5 minutes left, so maybe we can look at some of these wonderful details where you're showing the consolidation in practice.
That's the first time that we share them with public. You're lucky.
Yeah.
And this is the teaser for the exhibition, Mathieu.
I just love looking at the brushstrokes that the artists have applied. So do you think that this image here, is this from the Limbourg brothers?
No, it's Deldicque. Look at the eyes. Deldicque.
Yeah.
So, 1446.
1446.
Sorry.
And so this is a face from the May, I think, month of May. And this is a woman with a turban, and this turban has been painted with lead white, of course. And you can see here how the lead white is very damaged and
brittle.
Presents some lasses, important lasses. And so we were testing it with the paper point, and after that you can see the brush. And yes, with the gelatine.
Yeah.
That's it, just a little.
So it's an undergoing
it's going to take
restoration.
some time, I think.
Until May.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of May, we will finish the first part of the restoration. And because there is this exhibition. So from the 7th of June to the 5th of October of this year, please come to Chantilly, because it's a once in a lifetime, or maybe once in half a millennium exhibition. It's the first time that this manuscript will be displayed with the calendar dismantled, with all the book of hours of the Duc de Berry all together for the first time since 1416. And as we can't lend these manuscripts outside of Chantilly, thanks to the testament of the Duc de Mal, so it's on site. It will be the perfect opportunity to see each miniature, to see the work of Coralie and her team, and to see all the Limbourg brother manuscripts and other manuscripts of the Duc de Berry. The tomb of the Duc de Berry will come from Bourges, and lots of loans from everywhere, 100 manuscripts, paintings, sculptures, jewelry, and so on. And it's an exhibition not about the Duc de Berry, but about the book, about this icon. And this book was very famous, including during the 15th century, and inspired lots of people until the 20th century, until Walt Disney, the Sleeping Beauty castle, was inspired by the Duc de Berry calendar. You will recognize, we don't have, this is the Louvre. But in the booth, you can have the picture, because Walt Disney came in 1935, and so the manuscript and so on. So we will, talk about that story, that brilliant story. And then, after the exhibition, we will bind it together.
Yes, remount the two first quires and restore the entire binding.
Yeah. And it will be on a safe forever.
I think the last slide has all 12 of the images together. So,
no?
Maybe after.
The other way, maybe.
No, it's the last slide.
But if you go to the booth,
Yeah.
Here at the stand, you can see, I think they're magnified about 4 times the actual size.
You have the facsimile
and
to
then there's
realize
also
the
the facsimile as well.
Size. So. And just to finish, I want to thank all the partners of that ambitious project. So I'm working on it for 12 years. We began the analysis 2 years ago, and with Coralie and the C2RMF and so on. and lots of specialists are helping us. Lots of sponsors, the Friends of Chantilly, Hubert and Mireille Goldschmidt, who are here, the Etria Foundation, the TEFAF Museum Projects. So lots and lots of partners, because it's not a common book.
No. And
as you can
on the stand, you can scan the QR code, and that leads you to the full digitization of the
Yes.
book, and also backstories. So there are little points that you can click on and hear all about the
And you can book your
images.
tickets in the book.
And book the tickets, which is very important.
Which is very important, because there will be queues and lines and so on. So if you want to skip the line, you know what to do.
And on that note, I would just like to say thank you very much for this conversation on conservation. It has been a delight to hear about this Mona Lisa, this full, rich, this, I mean, we didn't really talk about materiality, but I've never seen so much lapis lazuli of such good quality, and the gilding and the silver work on it is just amazing.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend going to Chantilly, to the Chateau, to see the exhibition that's coming up in June. And Mathieu, Coralie and Patricia, thank you so much for sitting here on the sofa with us today.
Thank you.
And we do have time now for some question and answers. So has anybody got some dying question that they want to know about some of the images or some of the materiality or some of the decisions for conservation that the team has been explaining? Please, sir.
I'm coming from Luxembourg.
There's a microphone. If you could take the microphone, please.
Coming from Luxembourg and visited Chantilly, of course, 2 years ago. We were impressed by the big blocks of glass under which there were all kinds of biological presentations. But in the corner, in the far corner, we had the book of Hours. Was that right?
It was a facsimile.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay, sure. No, we thought it. But yes, the other thing is in the weight of the book altogether.
Happiness.
In Luxembourg, we have a Bible, the Bible of Très. It's recently bought by the National Bibliothèque in Luxembourg, a couple of millions, and it was from 1106. And yes, and it's also being under reconstruction. It has to be under reconstruction. It's 25 kilograms.
Wow.
This one is?
Between 2 and 3.
Okay.
I would say no.
All right.
It's not a choir book, for a prince.
Okay.
A whole prince.
Yeah, the choir books are usually calfskin because the animal is larger, and these were, 33 centimeters is large for
a
Book of Hours.
library, yeah.
The other ones are much smaller than dimension, but this would be handled, so it wouldn't be on a lectern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is sufficient information for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the
We will visit, of course, Chantilly again.
We're waiting for you.
Boards? Does this one have wooden boards?
No.
I have a
Also
question
big
here.
difference.
Grace, if you could bring the microphone. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. I should have precise. Yes, they are not wooden boards. It's a body board.
Hello,
It makes
I'm Trina Temer. I'm art historian mainly. I've worked on a program for technical photography, so I was very interested in the materiality of this incredible cathedral book, as you well presented, and thank you also for this presentation. So my question was, I think you mentioned the fact that you did some hyperspectral photography and some other, right? How did you obtain the cartography of the pigments, or did you get to that point? Did you need it for your conservation, or this was just one of the many techniques you used?
Vous voulez répondre? What? I didn't need exactly the hyperspectral analysis to perform the conservation project, but it was more to give other information about these very important miniatures and to know, for example, if they were underneath drawings or some maybe.
One of the main question about for art historian about that manuscript and about the calendar is who painted what.
Yeah.
For the three themes, because you are underdrawing, but sometimes you have the layer of painting which is different 30 years later. So we wanted to know the underdrawing, to see the underdrawing beneath the calendar. And so we got a lot of new information. It will be published in the catalog. And with some new drawing by the Limbourg brother. And above you have the Barthélemy deck or Jean Colomb painting. So we discover new works of art in a way, thanks to X-ray and all the analysis made in Centre de Recherche et de Restauration des Musées de France in the Louvre Palace. Yeah.
Okay, so you mainly focus on the hyperspectral was used for the underdrawings. And
Hyperspectral, yes, but also actually we made every available
non-invasive
techniques because it was the unique and opportunity and for the first time for many pages. Actually, it took more than 6 months to do that. But it was not every analysis was useful for the restoration project. It's two actually answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, thank you so much for your answers.
Do we have any other questions?
Thank you. I just would like to know, you mentioned that a facsimile can be viewed here on the fair. What's the booth number?
810.
Okay, thank you.
Upstairs on the first floor, so this level. And I think, Mathieu, do you want to explain a little bit about the facsimiles? Because they were made in the 80s, I believe. And
there were many campaigns of facsimiles. So the first one is 1904, and that's where they hand burned the manuscripts, unfortunately, I think. But then, after the Second World War and in the 1980s, and then in 2004, and we are currently doing a new facsimile as well, because there was a lot of demands about it. Yeah, but this one, I think it's from the 80s.
And I think there were a number of volumes created in that, so that they were distributed.
Exactly.
So this one is in a display case. It's an historical document now in itself.
Yeah.
And you can see some of the 2 pages that are open there. Any other questions? Well, thank you again for your insights, and thank the audience.